aspect of the seminar is, first of all, to observe our emotional reactions. After we observe them, to begin to analyze them, to discover the causes of our emotions, what causes us to feel the way we feel. And in parts of our lives where we're not happy with the way we feel, where we would like to feel differently, we would like to be free from certain emotions, unpleasant emotions, to see how we can transform our belief system, free ourselves from those emotional mechanisms, we will call them emotional mechanisms, which are automatic mechanisms, which work within us independent of our rational thinking, independent of our rational beliefs. We'll be doing that through the various discussions which we have here, but a very important aspect of the seminar will be your keeping a diary and your working on certain questionnaires which you will be given and which you have already been given in this packet that you have for the emotional harmony. Just about all of the questionnaires that you will work with, and the text that you will work with, are in this packet. And the third aspect will be the discussion groups. So this part of the seminar has three basic aspects. It's the teachings, it's your own writing and analysis of yourselves, and the discussion groups which take place after the class each week. It's not a very good time now. We want to sit here now, and we're recording this at this point. Thank you. Thank you. Now, we've already discussed the effect of the physical body on the emotions, and that when the energy body or the endocrine system is not functioning properly, then our emotions are affected. When our energy is low, our emotions are affected. The effect of emotions on our lives is also very clear and becoming ever more clear through various research studies which are being done between the relationship between emotions and health, and especially between emotions and the immune system. In a recent study which I read makes a very direct relationship between ability to forgive and cancer and heart disease and arthritis. It is the ability to forgive other persons and ourselves is a very powerful healing mechanism, and people who are able to forgive contract less illness. So we'll be talking about this relationship between emotions and illness. And you remember a chart that you had which showed how emotions affect the pituitary and the hypothalamus glands, which in return affect the adrenals, and the adrenals then the thyroid, parathyroid, the kidneys, the intestines, even the production of red blood cells. All of these are affected by our emotional states. So the first effect of emotions on our lives is on our state of health. The second effect is on our clarity of mind. I would suggest that our mind is like the sea. It's like a body of water. And when there are many waves on that body of water, it's very difficult to see the bottom very clearly. We can't see very clearly through all that movement. When these waves stop and the water becomes very still, then we see very clearly. I would say that the mind is like this sea, and that the emotions are the waves. And when there are many intense emotions, it's very difficult for us to see ourselves or others or situations very clearly. We see them through this distortion, this intense movement, and we, in a sense, distort that which exists. Our ability to distort reality is incredible. and I've seen this through all of these 20, 25 years of working with myself and working with others, how I distort reality and how others distort reality through our preconceptions and through our previous experiences, projecting our past onto the people and the situations which exist in the present, imagining things and motives and situations which simply don't exist. We're all, to a certain degree, paranoic. And we often see dangers and fear things in which there is no danger. So the second aspect is that our clarity of mind is weakened, is reduced. The third effect of emotions on our lives is on our relationships. It is when we are subject to emotional mechanisms which create within ourselves distrust, fear, fear of abandonment, fear of hurt, fear of rejection. And these create defensive mechanisms in our relationships. Then we begin to destroy our love relationships because we approach these relationships with need and with fear rather than with love. And so this combination of need or attachment or dependency, which is accompanied by fear of being abandoned, fear of being hurt, fear of being rejected, creates a large number of very defensive types of attitudes within the relationship, which gradually destroy the relationship. So the three main aspects in which emotions affect our lives are the three most important things: our health, our state of mind, our clarity, our productivity, our creativity, and our relationships. So it's very important to put all of this into a harmonious state. Let it be very clear from the first day that we're not interested in suppressing any emotions. We're not here to discuss how we can eliminate emotions or suppress. We want to acknowledge, accept, respect our emotions and the causes of those emotions within ourselves without being controlled by them. In a class that we had yesterday, we discussed this example. That is, when I suppress emotions, then I'm suppressing a part of myself which will eventually erupt. We can do it for 1 year, 2 years, 15 years, 50 years, but at some point this suppressed energy is going to erupt within us and is going to control our lives. It cannot be suppressed for a long period of time. When we express them freely without having any control over them, then often they destroy our lives and our relationships. So I would suggest the idea of surfing, that is, if the emotion is the wave, rather than being under the wave, or rather than being suppressing the wave, being on a board on top of the wave and using the energy of that emotion creatively in our lives, accepting it, expressing it, without being controlled or destroyed by it, and without suppressing it. Now, what is an emotion? I would separate it into E, which I would say represents the ego, and motion. So it's a movement of the ego. It's a thought with power. An emotion is a thought, but a thought which has power behind it, a greater power than another kind of thought. Now, what are the stimuli which stimulate emotions within us? One category, and I would say that this category contains most of the causes of our emotions, rather the stimuli of our emotions, is an external event. It could be something that we gain, something that we lose, something that someone says to us. Someone speaks pleasantly to us and we feel affirmed and we feel well. Someone criticizes us and our day is darkened. We gain something, we buy something, we achieve something, we fail at something, we lose something, and that creates a different kind of emotion. So the basic stimulus for all emotions are events which take place in our lives. And more for most people, events which have relationship with persons that are important to us. That is what affects us more than anything. That is, events which have to do with our children, with our parents, with our spouse, with our loved one, with our work, with our health. These are the main events which create these emotional states. Another cause, I have not used the word cause, because the only actual cause of emotions are beliefs. So we're going to call these stimuli. That is, the stimulus which creates the light is the switch, but the cause of the light is the electricity. You understand the difference? So it's just a trigger. What triggers emotions? What triggers emotion is an event, but the cause of the emotion is what I believe about the event. If I believe differently about the event, then I have a completely different emotional state. That is, if the same event happened before us in this room at this moment, and each is observing that event through a different mindset, through a different set of beliefs, each is going to experience different emotions as he observes that same event. So the cause of the emotion is the belief, but the triggering mechanism is that which happens. Another triggering mechanism is memory. So it could be something that's not happening at this moment in my life, but I'm remembering something that happened, and that memory causes me to feel well or unhappy, depending on the event that I remember and how I interpret that. So I can hold bitterness and injustice and anger within me for 50 years about an event which has no reality anymore. The only place that event exists is in my mind. It exists nowhere else. And the moment I forgive that event and release it from my mind, there's no other triggering mechanism for that emotion. So I contain that within myself. And with the memory of the past is also the thought of the future. If you consider most of the fears that we have, they are not about the present. We fear that someone may die, that someone may not succeed, that we may not be safe, that someone may not love us forever. I mean, most of our fears have to do with the future and not with the present. A fear in the future would be that a lion walks in the room and he's hungry, and he looks at us as prospective food. That would be fear in the present. Fear in the present would be that there's an earthquake at this moment. The rest of our fears have to do with things which may happen. I may not have economic security after a year. I may not have that loved one after a certain period of time. I may not succeed, or my child may not succeed. All of those are fears and emotions based on what may or may not happen. They have nothing to do with the present. So we have triggering mechanisms. Number one, the events in the present, memory of the past, and thoughts about the future. Another triggering mechanism is the hormonal state, the chemical state of the body. It is known that chemical substances can trigger certain emotional states. Psychedelic substances can trigger certain states. Hormones, especially in the woman in her monthly cycle, she experiences various emotions without having a specific external event which may trigger that. Or the event may be small and the reaction more intense depending on the hormonal state. Now, the hormones are not the cause. We must understand that. The cause is what my inner tendencies, my beliefs, my needs, which are brought to the surface by this hormonal state. It's like the difference, we have a seed in the ground. Water comes and causes that seed to grow, but the cause of the growth is the seed, not the water. The water just gives the ability for the seed to grow. So the hormonal state just gives the ability for what is within us to be expressed. It's not the cause of what comes out. What comes out is within us. Those feelings are within us. The hormonal state just allows them to be expressed more easily. And the same is true for our energy level. That is, when our energy level is low, we are more prone towards negative emotional states. That is, small things bother us. Whereas when our energy level is high, even the most negative triggering mechanisms may leave us unaffected, all depending on our emotional and our energy state. And that's why for these last two triggering mechanisms, the hormones and the energy state, we have to refer back to the physical harmony, and that's why we did physical harmony before emotional harmony, because we can eliminate a large number of unpleasant emotions by keeping our hormones in a harmonious state and keeping our energy level high and harmoniously flowing. And that means daily exercise, breathing, relaxation, meditation, if you decide to learn that, prayer, proper diet. You're just keeping a very harmonious physical state. Now, we talk about emotions. What are the emotions which a person has? We have made, in order to help you out, we have made a list of emotions. It's on your papers that you have, E3. We're going to try to avoid talking about good emotions or bad emotions, or even positive or negative. I would like to separate emotions into three categories. Pleasant emotions, rather emotions which unite us, uniting emotions. Separating emotions, emotions which cause us to feel separate from each other. And the third category, emotions which cause us to feel separate even from our own selves. Now, what are the uniting emotions? Of course, love is the number one. Compassion, understanding, caring, happiness usually unites us with other people. Gratitude is a very powerful and important emotion which is very scarce in our contemporary world. I mean, you see thousands of marches against things. You don't see any marches where people have so much gratitude. What a wonderful life this is, and how happy we are with how everything is, and how good God is. Very few people have gratitude. And the reality is we have so much to be grateful for. It's an emotion which gradually comes to a person after years of spiritual work on himself, when he begins to see every small thing in life as a gift and takes nothing for granted. That is, the food I have to eat today is not to be taken for granted because someone else does not have that. Or the water, or the telephone, or electricity can't be taken for granted. And water in a few months may not be taken for granted. So we may learn gratefulness, but since we are so ungrateful, we may learn the hard way that we could be grateful for the very simple things in life. Then there are the separating emotions, such as fear. Fear separates us from the object that we fear, whereas love unites us with the object of love. Jealousy, envy, bitterness, anger, hatred, rejection. All of these are emotions which separate us from persons, from life, from situations. And then we have emotions which separate us from ourselves, such as guilt, self-rejection, a lack of self-respect. Emotions which cause us not only to feel separate from other persons, but separate even from our own selves, and isolated from others, from ourselves, and from God, from nature. So no one is going to say to you in the course of this seminar that you have to overcome an emotion. It's totally your choice. It's totally your choice as to whether you want to continue having a certain emotion or emotional mechanism or not. You're going to see what is unpleasant for you in your lives, what mechanism is creating that, and you will decide. If you decide that I don't want to touch this, I don't want to change, I'm content with this as it is, then it's your choice. There are no right or wrong in this course. The question is, you have these options. You can continue feeling as you feel and relating as you relate to life, but if there are parts of your life that you're not happy about, that are creating a lot of pain for you, or pain for others also simultaneously with you, you may want to start looking at that and see if you want to change anything there. Now, how do most people handle their emotions today? People fall into two basic categories. Those who suppress their emotions, in the first category. When we suppress our emotions, there is greater damage to ourselves, to our physical body. That is, we are much more suspect to psychosomatic illnesses. It's now proven beyond any doubt that suppressed emotions lead to cancer, to heart disease, to arthritis, to colitis, to asthma, to allergies. It cannot be doubted anymore that these are all a function of suppressed emotions. Also, when we suppress emotions, we have to put them somewhere. We have to cover them in a certain way. You know, when something comes into our body and it's going to create harm for us, the first thing our body does is to create a cellular wall around that and isolate it from the rest of our body. And that contains pus and various other substances eventually. And that's the first energy that the first action that the body takes. And the same is true for these emotions which may harm us, since these happen in our childhood years usually, these first emotions, and we're not able to deal with them. We put this covering around them, and we push them into the subconscious mind, and we lock the door. And this causes us gradually, as the years go on, to create a greater and greater wall, a thicker and thicker wall between the conscious and subconscious. And so we become gradually split personalities. On one hand, we understand things logically in a very logical way, and we're fine, and we see no problem or danger in life. On the other hand, our emotional states are a function of not of our logic, but of these emotions which are locked in our subconscious. They're creating all of our emotional reactions, and we cannot understand why we are reacting in these ways, and why we feel danger when we feel danger, when things logically are not endangering us. We are not being harmed. They're not confronting us in any way. So we become two persons. It takes a lot of energy to keep all that suppressed. And what it usually requires is that we don't have a relationship with ourselves. It usually requires that we become addicted to external stimuli, such as work, relationships, chemical substances, sensual pleasures, so that there is no possibility of the mind feeling what is actually going on within us. And that at some point, when we are left without these external stimuli which keep the mind focused externally, and we for some reason have an awareness of what's going on within ourselves, we begin to feel all of these weaknesses, or all of this sensitivity and this vulnerability, which for so many years we were unaware existed, or perhaps even hurt, which we were unaware existed within us, because we had created this external wall of, I'm sure of myself, and I have no needs, and I have no fears. And so that also creates a wall towards our creativity, towards our intuition, and towards many beautiful things which exist within the subconscious, along with all of those hurt feelings which we try to suppress within there. So another effect of the suppressed emotion is that we are closed off to major portions of ourselves which we could be using for our creativity and productivity in life. Another however, effect is that in reality we cannot hide emotions. If you want to look at the diagrams before that, look at page E2. You have a chart? Yeah. This is the psychology of connected containers. What does this say? When we are deeply connected with another person, it's like there is a subterranean connecting line between us, and we're like two containers filled with water with a common base. Now what happens when I suppress the water in one of those containers? it goes up in the other. And if I suppress it in the other, it goes up in the opposite. So what happens when I'm in a relationship, such as parent-child relationship or spouse relationship with someone, and I suppress my feelings? I'm not expressing them overtly, but underneath all of that, from solar plexus to solar plexus, without words, all of these emotions are transferred. So we see in the first example, a man who is not able to express his fear and may have fear, may be sending all of that fear subconsciously to his wife, who is able to express it. And so she expresses not only his fear, but her fear, but also his. Or in the opposite case, a woman who has been programmed not to express anger, with a man who expresses freely his anger, but has anger, will be subconsciously passing her anger on to him, and then she feels doubly abused because she's not expressing her anger, and he's expressing double anger, hers and his, and she can't understand why. But I'm attracting anger. I'm attracting my own anger. I'm expressing my own anger through the other persons who are around me because I'm unable to express it. Now, we're not saying that everyone has to express their anger here, but the reality is that whatever I'm feeling is already being received by the important persons around me. I'm just kidding myself and kidding them by not talking about it. And here the great problem is that because no one is acknowledging the existence of these emotions, they cannot be discussed and solved. And so we are arguing and feeling hurt about other things, other matters, because we cannot discuss the real matters, because we're not discussing the real things which are upsetting us and our real needs. So perhaps the worst thing about suppressing of emotions is that actually it's just a waste of time, because they're being received anyway. And it's even worse because they're not being received consciously, and thus they cannot be worked with. On the other hand, when we just freely express our emotions without any kind of respect for other people around us, hurting their feelings, demeaning them, causing them to feel rejected, unloved, demeaned, then this has the opposite effect, that we begin to lose the love of this person. They begin to withdraw from us. They may even become vindictive or aggressive back to us. And gradually, our source of happiness, at least at this stage of our evolution, which is this harmonious relationship with this other person, is destroyed. So in the one case, we destroy our own health, and we become isolated from sources of creativity and intuition and power within ourselves. In the other case, we destroy our relationships. But perhaps the worst in the second case is that we cease to evolve. Because what is our mindset? Everyone else is wrong, and I'm the only right one. And so when I get into this state, then all of my problems are very easily solved. I accuse the others, I yell at the others, and then I relax. And I have no stimuli for growth. Because there's no sense for myself to look at myself, because the others are to blame. So when someone is working in this psychological state, simply yelling and screaming and accusing others every time he doesn't feel well, he not only destroys his relationship, but he loses every possibility of growth, because he has no stimulus for self-examination. At least the other person who is taking some responsibility for what he feels and does not believe that everyone else around him is to blame for his reality, has the stimulus to begin looking and to see what he's going to do. The other person just solves his problem by accusing the world. So neither of these solutions is very effective. So we're going to be looking in this seminar for other possibilities. We're not interested in suppressing, and we're not interested in being totally controlled. I would suggest this is like a river. If we stop the flow of the river, then everything downstream will dry up. If we allow the river to continuously flood, everything downstream will be destroyed. So we need to learn to take this river, not to stop it, not to allow it to overflow continuously and destroy everything around it, but to channel that energy in a positive way so as to irrigate all of that which is downstream and create a paradise in our lives. So emotions connect us. A person who does not work with his emotions has no connection with other persons. It's the connecting energy which allows us to feel love and unity with other persons. If we stop those, we are not taking the emotional nutrients that we need in order to survive physically, emotionally, and spiritually. On the other hand, if we're totally controlled by them, we're destroying those relationships with other persons around us. So, how are we going to work on this? We're going to try to look at these emotional mechanisms and see how they are working in our lives. These emotional mechanisms are made up of 4 parts in the beginning. After a few weeks, we'll be adding a 5th part and a 6th part and a 7th part. But for the first few weeks, it's made up of 4 parts. The first part is the stimulus. So all this week, I would like you to observe the times in which you have certain emotions which are unpleasant to you. And I would like you to ask, what is the stimulus? What exactly is happening or has happened? What is that which is triggering this emotional state? So we write down, the stimulus is this. The stimulus is that which my friend just told me at this moment. It's the news that I heard. It's the loss of this event. It's this accident which occurred. Whatever it is. This failure. Or it could be something positive. But I would suggest that we don't analyze our positive emotions at this time because we don't want to destroy those emotional mechanisms at this time. Let's leave those as they are, at least for now, and look at what is unpleasant to us. Secondly is the emotion. What do I feel? And so you have a list of emotions there on page E3. You can, when you're looking for emotions, take a look at that page because it was my experience when I first started doing this kind of work that we really don't know what our emotions are. And it's difficult for us to name them. We say, I feel badly. That's not enough. That's very general. We want to understand what exactly is the emotion that we're feeling. So we want to discover the triggering mechanism, the stimulus. We want to discover the emotion. And having those 2 poles, we want to find the connecting link. And what is the connecting link? Our beliefs. And so actually this is a seminar on beliefs. It's emotional harmony. But all the key to our reality is our beliefs. So we are creating a reality in relationship to our beliefs. And if we want to change our reality, we simply need to change our beliefs. Simply. It's not so simple. It's not so easy at all. But this is what needs to be done, to change these beliefs. We may change them consciously, but there's this iceberg effect of conscious changing, and then there's this whole subconscious mass, which also has to be changed in order for us to experience that in our daily life. So we look for the connecting link that is the belief which, when it sees that stimulus, when it experiences that triggering mechanism, feels these emotions. And then the fourth aspect of the emotional mechanism is my reaction. How do I react? Now there are internal reactions such as clenching my stomach, creating tension in my shoulders and my neck, my eyes, creating headaches, creating pains in my body. External emotion, reactions such as walking away, approaching, shouting, yelling, escaping, moving away from situations. Each person will have to see how he reacts. And then there's something else you may ask. How does my reaction then become a triggering mechanism for the others and then becomes a whole reaction or emotional mechanism in there? That is, I react in a certain way, the other person perceives my reaction through his belief system, creates his emotions, creates his reaction. He comes back to me with his interpretation and his reaction. That becomes my new triggering mechanism. That passes through my beliefs, creates new emotions, and then my reaction. And we have this vicious circle of two robots interacting, and very little conscious interaction, because mechanisms are interacting. People are not interacting. There are these whole mechanisms from our childhood years which are causing us to say things and do things which we don't really feel at this moment logically. And the other person is doing the same. And of course we become distanced, and we lose our love, we lose our unity, we lose our clarity. I would like to look at a few examples of this. Let's look at page 4 now for a moment. Here we have listed what we just said, that what we are looking for this week is the stimulus, the life events, people's behaviors, situations, changes, or memories. 2, our programming, our conscious and subconscious beliefs, values, expectations, attachments, aversions. Our emotions we're looking for. Most emotions are based on guilt or fear, most negative emotions, unpleasant emotions. And our reaction to the others and environment in words, thoughts, actions, and attitudes. And if we can, the others or the environment's reaction to us then becomes our new stimulus. So throughout this week, now there are some hints down here. It says, discover beliefs which explain the existence of all emotions. Leave no emotions unexplained. Remember to search for the inner child's beliefs. What do we mean by this? We'll be speaking about the inner child more and more as we go on in the seminar. The idea is that we are actually two persons or more than two persons. There is the one person who has grown up and sees things rationally, clearly, but there is still a child which lives within our subconscious, which still has many doubts about our security, about our self-worth, about other people's love. And these doubts of this inner child, which are based on this child's experiences as a child, which continue to exist within our subconscious mind, cause most of our negative reactions and emotions. So when you're analyzing yourselves, don't look only to the rational part of yourselves. Where there's smoke, there has to be fire. So if I'm feeling fear, it doesn't suffice to say I can't find the belief which is creating fear. I have to find the belief. There's a reason for that fear. If my stomach is in knots, there's a reason. I may not be able to find a logical reason, so let me accept the existence of the inner child, that there is a child within me who, although I, as an adult, cannot find any reason to feel upset about what is happening, this other part of me is feeling that, and I must acknowledge and accept that part of myself and begin to see it and work with it. As long as I ignore it and accept the existence of these unpleasant emotions without searching deeply in to decide why I'm feeling this way, I will always be controlled by it. The only way to really get free is to accept, acknowledge, and begin to work with this part of ourselves. So don't be afraid to accept that there is a great bit of incongruency within us. There's many conflicting aspects of ourselves, and that's perfectly natural. And it's perfectly natural in a person who is growing. I mean, it's the most natural thing that a part of me will have understood something intellectually, while another part of me is still working on trying to experience that emotion. That's very... Anyone who is in a growth process becomes even more schizophrenic, if you want to say it that way. That is, because he has one part of himself which understands all of these spiritual truths and believes them and wants his life to be based on them, and he has other part of himself which is still functioning from these emotional mechanisms. So don't be afraid to see this discrepancy which is within us. And the second hint is that behind all aggressive emotions we can find feelings of weakness, inability, danger, insecurity, rejection, or basically fear. So when you in your analysis discover that you're feeling anger or hate or revenge, don't stop in your analysis there. You must realize that behind anger there is always a feeling of weakness. There is always a feeling of danger, of fear. Anger and hatred are second emotions. It's a second wave of emotions. It exists when I am feeling the danger of self-rejection, the danger of rejection from the other person, the danger of failure, the danger of losing my security, or not having something which I need. Now, on page 5, you have a copy of the squares for analysis. This, I would suggest that before you write on this page, that you make about 10 photocopies, 10 or 15 photocopies, because you would want throughout the week to use this sheet for helping you to analyze specific emotional mechanisms. And you can see, this is, you will put the stimulus in the small box in the upper left-hand corner, our emotions in the small box in the lower left-hand corner, and then we will try to fill that box on the right-hand side there, the programming, our beliefs, or what I believe which makes me feel that way when confronted with the stimulus, with that stimulus, with the various beliefs that we have. And in this way we will begin to get a handle on our emotional mechanisms. It's a very important help. And then in the center box on the left-hand side are reactions. Okay, so this sheet will be very helpful in taking an emotional reaction and seeing it clearly in front of us. Now, you may have difficulty doing that at first. You may want to simply write about what happened in a free way, just expressing whatever comes out, and then take that and look at it and then try to fit that into this way of understanding what exactly is happening within me. What are my emotions exactly? What are my beliefs? And what exactly is bothering me? On the back side of that page, there's a more complicated method of doing this. That is, we have the stimulus up above, and then what I would suggest that you do is, and that second level where it says emotion 1, emotion 2, emotion 3, 4, and 5, that you write here the various emotions that you have: fear, insecurity, anger, bitterness, injustice, revenge, whatever they may be. You may need another sheet. And then for every emotion that you write there, with that one stimulus that we have up above, you have to search to find the belief, which is the connecting link between that stimulus and these various emotions, you see. And that's a more foolproof way of analysis, because then I don't leave emotions without explaining them. I am forced to search for the specific belief which is creating that particular emotion. So the method is to write in the upper box the event, then to write on that third level the emotions, one in each box, and then search for the beliefs. There may be 2 beliefs or 5 beliefs. The same belief can create various emotions also, and also we can have many beliefs which are creating one emotion. These are not to be limited to one specific thing. And then below, the various reactions. So that you can understand this more easily, we have 3 examples. Turn to the next page to see the examples. In this example, our child brings home poor grades. Now, these examples, unfortunately, were not created in the way that I asked you to work now. Here we wrote the beliefs and then we thought of the emotions. I prefer what I explained to you earlier. Write one emotion in each box and try to find the beliefs. This is not a good example because it was done in a different way. Let's say that I believe that his success and happiness depends on his grades, or that he will be unhappy and in danger if he does not have good grades. This will create emotions of fear, insecurity, anxiety. Reaction could be effort to make the child study, usually with tension. If my belief is that he is to blame for his poor performance and my unhappiness, or that he is not obeying me, not trying, then I may have emotions of resentment, bitterness, hurt, injustice, anger. I could reject the child, hurt his feelings, punish him. If I believe in box number 3 now, that I am totally responsible for my child's success and failure, and thus I am a failure as a parent, as a person, then the emotions that I feel are failure, self-rejection, shame, and guilt. Anger that the child is making me feel this way, because I need the child's success in order to feel well. It's not only that I want the child to be well, but this is a need. It's my need, and I'm angry that he's not allowing me to fulfill my need of feeling okay as a parent or as a person, because I need his success or his health or his happiness. This happens whenever we take responsibility for someone else's state. We can do this with a spouse or with a parent. Once we take responsibility for someone else's happiness or health or success, and they are not able to create it, this creates within us often aggressive feelings towards that person, because we cannot be at peace with ourselves because we are failures. We have failed in our role to create his happiness, his health, his success. If we fall into belief system number 4, others will lose their respect for me. My self-worth is dependent on what others think of me and my child. Then again I may feel self-rejection, shame, inferiority, self-doubt, anger. Reaction could be to release this negativity on the child, pressure the child, punish the child. If we have another belief system, however, that I and my child are souls in evolution, our self-worth is absolute and independent of our performance or others' opinion. My child has a problem, and I will help him, and he will succeed. Then the emotions could be inner peace, faith in self and child, compassion, understanding, love, and unity. Reaction could be to help the child discover the problem, inspect ourselves for necessary changes, and give emotional and practical support. So depending on our beliefs, we can have a wide variety of emotions, which have to do with the child, with ourselves, and with others. Let's look at another example. Next page. Someone criticizes us behind our back, and someone else informs us of this. So what are some beliefs which may work in this situation, may be activated in this situation? My self-worth depends on what others think about me. I will lose their love. Creates emotions of fear, self-rejection, hurt, bitterness, anger, perhaps depression. Reaction, possibly to defend ourselves to the others or to confront the gossip. Other beliefs, I will be alone. I am not safe alone. I am in danger. Fear, insecurity. Another system of beliefs, I am a victim. I gave and did not receive. I have been betrayed. The other is to blame for my pain. We could feel weakness, betrayal, disillusionment, anger, revenge. We could seep into depression. We could react aggressively in such situations. Other beliefs, others cannot be trusted. I am alone in the world. I am in danger of being hurt physically, emotionally. This could create fear, loneliness, anger. Reaction could be to close off from the others, to wear a mask, a false self, to become aggressive. Another possibility is that I accept and love myself independent of the other's opinion. I feel safe and secure in all situations, and that life gives me exactly what I need to evolve. In such a case, I would feel inner peace, understanding and love for the person who has the problem, and forgiveness. The effort to help the person with the problem and continue life without disturbance. And one last example. One fears that perhaps one's spouse is cheating on him or her. Now, I would like to investigate this from two aspects. The first question is, what are the beliefs which I have which cause me to suspect that? Because there are two levels here, the suspecting of it, and then what I feel about that if it's true. The suspecting it could be from the belief that this is the way people are, men are or women are, they cannot be trusted. Another belief which may cause me to suspect it is that I am not enough for the other, that I am not interesting enough, or I am not worthy enough to hold someone's attention completely, exclusively. And so this doubt about myself, or this doubt about the opposite sex, especially if I have experienced something like that in my childhood or in society in general, cause me to have this doubt. Then the second level is what I feel about that. So some basic beliefs about this are that my self-worth is dependent on the exclusivity of this person's love. That is, we have a tendency to measure our self-worth in various ways, but one very basic way is that there is one person at least in this universe who loves me exclusively more than he loves anyone else. That is very important to us in order to feel our self-worth. It's an illusion, of course. I mean, that doesn't make us worthy, and it doesn't make us unworthy if that person tomorrow loves someone else as much as he loves us or more. But we have made a great investment in that, and we all make a great investment in it, that I am worthy if there is at least one person who sees me as the most important person in the world for him or her. Another important belief, especially for women, and especially in the Mideast and to the east of the Mideast, is that I'm not safe without a man. And that my financial and material and physical security are dependent on my having a man, or my being socially accepted in social circles is dependent upon that. So there are these various beliefs which create the suspicion and the fear that it might happen or that it is happening. And then there is all these beliefs which make this unacceptable, that I lose my self-worth, I lose my security, I lose my ability to function socially. And this creates all these negative feelings. And the third level is that my reality is being created by the other. And so that who is to blame for all of this? The other. And then we have this whole series of emotions which are hate, revenge, and all of these emotions of aggressivity towards the other, anger, because I believe that the other is responsible for what I'm feeling. So there's three levels here. There's the suspicion, there's the fear, which is I won't be safe, I won't be worthy, I won't be accepted, and then there's the anger and the aggressivity which comes out later, that this is an injustice and it's not happening within a divine plan, for example. This should not be happening. My pain is the result of the actions of another person. And that remains that way unless we can arrive to enough spiritual peace to go on to the fourth level, which would be forgiveness. And being able to accept that it's not worth carrying this thing within me and beating myself every day with this, because I'm the only one that's suffering through my pain and through my anger at this point. No one else is suffering. I'm just harming myself with this inability to forgive. So these are three examples of how this analysis can be done. We look at the event in the present, in the past, or perhaps even in the future. We try to discover what our emotions are, and we try to discover the specific beliefs which are creating our emotions. And that's as much as that we're going to do for the first few weeks. We're not going to be searching for answers, for solutions, for changes. We're not even going to decide if we want to change. We're just going to learn how to analyze ourselves. Later, we will ask the question, do I want to change anything? And even later, what do I want to change? and then how I will change it. For the present time, we're not interested in any of that. We're just interested in learning how to analyze these mechanisms, because they're reflex mechanisms. You understand what a reflex mechanism is? When the doctor hits our knee and the knee goes forward, it's a reflex mechanism which goes to the spinal column, returns to the knee without passing through the brain. This is what these emotional mechanisms are. They're reflex actions which don't pass through our conscious mind. And they happen in fractions of a second. And the adrenaline is moving, and the mouth is expressing itself, and the eyes are opening. And this is happening without it having passed at all through our conscious mind. To understand, do I want to be this way at this moment? Do I want to react in this way? Do I want my happiness to depend on this person? Do I want my buttons to be pushed so easily by every other person? Do I want to give my happiness to every person that I meet and love and say, you're going to decide whether I'm going to be happy or unhappy, and let them push my buttons all day long? I may want to be that way. I may not want to be that way. This is your choice. Only you can dismantle these emotional mechanisms and take the control of your emotional states back into yourselves. No one else can give you that. And so it's a choice that each of us will make as we analyze ourselves. Any questions about today's session? So the work, just one more, the work for next week is to do about at least 3 analysis. I would like to do and analyze at least 3 situations or events in your lives. Bring them with you next week. Try to analyze them on those diagrams. Make some photocopies of those diagrams so that we can begin next week discussing in more detail our emotional mechanisms. Right.
I want to ask, when should these events take place in the week to come?
Yes, well, it could be something that happens in the last month. It doesn't matter. Anything which is occupying our minds. Whatever occupies our mind more frequently in the last, more intensely or more frequently.
Is this what you were talking about, the squares, when you said you would like us to keep in a diary?
Well, the diary is just keeping a diary of our emotions and what we're feeling. The squares is a way of analyzing the contents of our diary. You could do it directly. If you want to do it directly on the squares, that's fine. If you want to just write things freely and then use the squares to put perspective on what's happening, you can also do it that way. Some people feel contained and suppressed by the squares. And so I suggest write freely, and then afterwards try to put that into the squares. Other people who are work more with the left brain, they prefer to go directly to the squares. It's up to you. Any other questions about the analysis of the emotions? Yes.
The situation should be pleasant or doesn't
I would suggest that you choose unpleasant situations for the time being, because we don't want to dismantle our pleasant emotional mechanism. Let's take whatever happiness we can for the time being. Because we may see that even those are based on false beliefs. But when you're feeling happy because you succeeded on something and you feel you're worth more, that's an illusion. We're never worth more or worth less. So let's keep our illusionary happiness, at least for the time being, and get rid of the illusionary unhappiness. Okay, so let's break up into groups and come on. Ito na ito, may pigumil.